Here's an image of a 1930 United States federal census record. Click the double arrows below and on the right side of the image to expand the image window. Click on the Zoom In link until you can easily read the document. Now you can start to see all the helpful, detailed information in this record. For starters, here's the state, county, and city where this record was taken. The headers at the top of the page show what information each column contains. Let's use the Sinatra family as an example and walk through each column in this record. Notice that people are grouped by household. The street name is written vertically in column 1. The street address is in column 2. You can see that the Sinatras lived at 705 Park Avenue. There were multiple residences in this building, and 3 other families lived at this address as well. Anthony is listed as the head of the household. He lived with his wife Natalie and his son Frank. Columns 7 through 10 show what is referred to as home data. The O in column 7 means Anthony owned his home, but the $65 in column 8 looks like a monthly rent payment. Scan the rest of the page and you'll see that rental prices ranged from $30 to $65, and home values were between $4,800 and $8,000. This is a great example of how even official historical documents can contain errors. That's why it's important to be open-minded when searching for your ancestors. The information in a record could be different than what you know is true. The R in column 9 means the family owned a radio. The question of owning a radio was a real sign of the times. 1930 was the only year this was ever asked as part of the census. Column 10 shows that the Sinatra family did not live on a farm. Columns 11 through 15 include personal descriptions. Here you'll find everyone in the household's gender, color or race, age at last birthday, marital status, and age at first marriage. Knowing your ancestor's age in 1930 allows you to estimate his or her birth year by subtracting the age from the year. For example, 1930 minus 36 equals 1894. So we can now estimate that Anthony was born in 1894 or 1893, depending on his birth date. You can use this information to search for birth records. The same logic can help you determine what year your ancestor was married, and then search for his or her marriage record from there. Columns 16 and 17 give you education information, which tells you if your ancestor could read and write, and if he or she had attended school since September 1, 1929. Columns 18 through 20 tell you where each person in the household and his or her parents were born. Frank Sinatra's parents were both born in Italy. Knowing this can help you find their immigration records, which we'll discuss more later. Scrolling through a census record can also give you a good sense of a neighborhood's ethnicity. It looks like most people in this neighborhood were born in the U.S., but you can see that many of their parents were born in Ireland. Column 21 doesn't apply to everyone, but it shows what language a person spoke before coming to the U.S. The codes in columns 21A through C weren't written by a census taker, but by Census Bureau staff members once the census form was turned in. These codes were used to help tabulate statistical information that was reported to the United States Congress. Columns 22 through 24 contain citizenship information. Column 22 shows the year of immigration to the United States, and column 23 shows whether a person had been naturalized. This can be incredibly useful information if you're searching for immigration records like passenger lists and naturalization documents. For example, now that you know Anthony Sinatra came to the U.S. in 1895, you can use that year to find his passenger arrival records on Ancestry.com. Column 24 tells you whether a person could speak English. Columns 25 through 29 cover occupation and industry information, and even tell you if your ancestor went to work the previous day. Anthony was a fireman for the city. The W in column 27 shows that he was a wage worker. E stands for employer. O means someone was working on his or her own. And NP tells you that the person was working for no pay. Looking through this record, you can see that there was a broad range of occupations in the neighborhood. Given the economic climate of 1930, you can imagine that Anthony was glad to be employed. Columns 30 and 31 show whether a person was a veteran, and if so, what war or expedition the person participated in. Anthony was not a veteran, but his neighbor was in World War I. More than 24 million men born between 1872 and 1901 were required to register for the draft, whether they were immigrants or native-born citizens. So even if your ancestor was not a veteran, you could still find important details about him in military records. As you can see, the 1930 census holds a wealth of details that could tell you who your ancestors were and what their lives were like. We've also shown you how census records can help you track down even more information about your ancestors in birth, marriage, and death records, immigration and military records, and many others. Now, put on your detective hat, dig into the census, and start discovering your story.